be a listener. Because if you're going to be a learner, you got to be a listener.
Yep.
The more I talk, the less I learn.
Yes.
The more I listen, the more I learn. So the scripture here is James 1:19. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. And what's interesting is, of course, that today, more typically, everyone is slow to listen, quick to become angry, and to speak.
Yes.
And that's just not helpful. And so, you just mentioned the word triggers, that we all have triggers. And typically when a trigger is like, it could be a subject, could be a word or a phrase, but when we hear it, when that comes up, it evokes an emotional response for us, and we stop listening and we stop learning. Great example of this was when Brenda Salter McNeil was here a few years ago, and during her talk, Brenda just mentioned the name of Colin Kaepernick. She didn't even talk about what he had done, about kneeling during the anthem or any of that, just said his name. And just hearing his name was a trigger for a lot of people in our congregation, and they stopped listening. They didn't hear a word Brenda said after that. You say, how do you know that, Joe? Because they told me. I got the emails from them where they said that to me.
Wow.
Yeah, it was very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, all of us have those triggers. I've got
Yes,
triggers.
me
You've
too.
got triggers. And if we want to be good listeners, we have to learn to identify our triggers and then put a trigger guard on them.
Yes.
It means identifying them and saying, you know what, when that subject comes up, I'm going to stay in the conversation. I'm not going to check out. I'm going to keep listening and see if I can learn something. And so this is what courageous listening is all about. It means setting aside your assumptions for a moment, getting rid of the I know it all syndrome, and I know I'm right.
Right.
And setting that aside for a moment and being curious about the other side. This is really important to be a good listener, is be curious. If someone says something you disagree with, trips one of those triggers, don't just tune them out. Instead, ask some good questions. Help me to understand your perspective. Tell me how you came to that conclusion. Why do you think like that?
And I think sometimes we're scared to listen because we think it might actually challenge our core beliefs.
Yes.
And we don't want to be shaken at that level. And so we just stop listening.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear that because it might actually change me.
Yes, we have these core beliefs, like you said, and we put defenses around them.
Yes.
And as soon as that trigger happens, zoop, up go the defenses. Instead of just being curious and saying, now, and again, you may hear the other person's point of view and still not agree. Yep. That's okay.
Yep.
But at least you've listened
Yes.
and possibly learned something in the process. Just one other quick thing, Michael, you mentioned listening to both sides. There's a great proverb. We'll put it up on the screen here. Proverbs 18:17. In a lawsuit, the first to speak seems right until someone comes forward and cross-examines.
Yep.
Isn't that a great proverb?
Yes.
And really what the proverb writer there is saying, he's saying, look at, when you hear one side of the story, you think, oh, that's right. And then you hear the other side of the story, you go, oh, wait a minute, there's more to this than I thought. This has happened to me in marriage counseling, right? Where I talk to a husband who berates his wife, and I think, oh, this poor guy. Then I talk to his wife, and I go, oh, my word, what a jerk, And you're hearing two very different stories.
Yes.
And this is why, when it comes to news, I may read or listen to a news thing on CNN, then I may go over to Fox and hear that same or read that same story with a different perspective.
Yes.
And again, it's just helpful to do that, I think. And again, as Christians, we're told to be quick to listen and to be learners. And so I think this is all about courageous listening. So be a courageous listener.